Hey YouTube, it's AJ. I owe you guys a 1-year update on my 75-gallon reef. Hey guys, so let's go ahead and take a look at the 75-gallon reef. It's been up for about a year now. Overall, I would consider the first year to be a success. However, that doesn't mean it didn't come with its challenges. So the first thing, let's just go ahead and point out the elephant in the room, is you'll notice the tank is fallow. Back late December, early January, I wanted to add some tangs and put them through my quarantine process. However, I kind of changed things up a bit, which basically caused me to introduce velvet into the system. Needless to say, all throughout January, I lost all my fish, my paraclowns, my copper band, my foxface, flame angel, my mandarin, or my mandarin. I don't even remember what else I had in there. I'll go into the details as far as how I introduced velvet and the faults I found within my quarantine system that I did just that one time in a different video. The other thing is, you will notice the corals seem to be doing pretty well, but I do have some tufts of algae, and I'll explain to you why that is. When I lost the fish, and I run the Zeovit, so keep that in mind. It's low nutrient, but that means I got to add, the corals rely heavily on food, such as, amino acids, fish waste. I was even doing reef roids, but I cut back on that to try and get my vermitid snails to die off, as well as I was dosing phytoplanktons at night. Well, when the fish died, I noticed all my corals started to fade. To the point where I thought they were going to die. Some of them even had a slow tissue necrosis, or STN. And as you'll see, some of the corals are still faded a bit, and I'll give you guys a close-up of that. So I had to start basically double or triple my food input into the tank just to give the corals what they needed as far as nutrition. Now, without having a very large cleanup crew, because I never really did, not having any predators in the tank, as well as going on vacation for almost 2 weeks, algae popped up. So now I'm dealing with that. It's not a huge deal, it'll go away. I've dealt with it enough, it'll go away. Right now my biggest concern is basically keeping the corals in an environment where they can thrive and color up. So with that being said, I'm not introducing any fish or corals until mid-April. By the time April 12th is the exact date I can actually introduce a fish in here, based on how long I wanted this tank to be fallow, which is a period of 90 days. I've been adding cleanup crew to help combat that. I actually have a pretty hardy cleanup crew. I couldn't even tell you how many snails and crabs are in there, but I do know it's hardy. And no mortality, no coral mortality in this tank since October. And in October I randomly lost, over here I had a pretty big stag coral. It was about that big, and each branch was probably about ½ inch thick. It RTN'd for some unknown reason. None of the other corals were affected. My water parameters were in check. I was doing my maintenance, I was doing my testing. I don't know what happened. It just happened. But like I said, none of the other corals were affected. But like I said, so far the first year of the update has been a success. I feel comfortable with my coral keeping abilities as well as my fish keeping abilities, especially now that I learned the mistake I did. My growth isn't the rate I would like it to be up until probably around November. Then it started to really accelerate, and a lot of the frags are starting to not look like frags. They're starting to look like little mini colonies, which makes me happy. And so yeah, the thing is just chugging along. I'm very happy with it. I think everything looks great. I have made one equipment update, well actually two, since I believe my last update. The first was adding an apex, which is just the classic. I added an apex, finally got that up and running on the system, and it is far superior to any other controller I've ever used, which was the Reef Keeper, and we all know they went out of business. So it was definitely a learning curve going from one controller to another, but I'm very happy with it. The other update is my Gen 2 Radeons are no longer on the tank. I am now running 3 Gen 4 Radeons, not the Pros, just the Gen 4s. And the big reason behind that is for the extra $150 a light, which would have cost me $450 overall, I just didn't see the benefit as far as the cost to justify the cost difference, especially going from a Gen 2 Radeon to a Gen 4, and I still have my T5s. So the main reason for going for 3 is at some point I do plan on upgrading to a 150 to 180 gallon tank, in which case all the equipment on this tank, from skimmer to sump to return pump to power heads to lights, it's all based around that upgrade. So literally all I have to do is buy the tank and stand and move everything over. The other reason is in the center structure here. I originally wasn't going to put SPS on it when I designed it. It was going to be an LPS rock, which the lower half is LPS and ZOAs, but the upper half I started getting more and more corals that I wanted, SPS corals. So they started going on the top. They weren't exactly getting the light that they needed, and so the growth on the center rock, the coloration's fine, but the growth is not nearly as quick or as rapid as the other rocks. And when I took par measurements, this rock was getting 100, maybe 150 par on average, whereas the others were doing around 250 to 300, just depending on what I guess the current was doing. So that's another reason for adding the 3 Radeons. I do run them on the Coral Lab AB Plus spectrum at 40%. Because I do run the Aquatic Life T5, and that gives me a good solid in this tank. I average about 280 par across the board, anywhere from the top of the structures to almost the bottom. And actually at the bottom it falls off pretty quick, but I'm glad because it lets me keep ZOAs and certain LPS corals that I like. Speaking of LPS corals, you notice my Scully's not in here, and it's because when I had my copper band and my fox face, for some reason they took to liking coral food. The fauna marin stuff that fish aren't supposed to like, they started eating it. And they would eat it out of his mouth, and he kind of started to deteriorate a little bit. But it's up in my quarantine. I've been dipping it, and I fully anticipate adding it here back within a month or so, because it's healing up. But that's a look at the tank. I'll give you guys a close-up of the corals and let you see how everything's doing. Like I said, I'm happy with the progression of this tank, and I can't wait to get some fish back in there. And after I show you a look at the corals, I'll go ahead and show you how the sump and everything else is looking. Alright guys, so here's a close-up of some of the corals. This is the left side of the rock structure. I'm trying to keep my camera on a tripod here, so I might not be able to get some of the ones in the back, such as my my grafted cap back down there. Like I said, the growth has been pretty good. I'm very excited about that, and you'll see some of the colors have faded, such as on this. I think this is a rainbow coral, a rainbow acro from Battle Corals. It's faded, but it's not dead, and it's still growing. You'll see some of the corals in the back that have STN, and they're growing back, doing very well. But other than the loss in coloration, everything seems healthy. All the polyps are out. Everything seems to be happy, healthy, and I know they'll bounce back, especially now that I'm starting to get more nutrition into the tank. Here's some of my zoas, and I apologize for the I guess the color wash. I have a new camera that I'm trying to provide better quality content to you guys, as well as for other personal reasons. So I'm still trying to figure that out. But yeah, so I mean, as you can see, there's the Jedi mind trick, and again, it's washed out, but really the edges are a deep blue and purple. And I guess the algae really isn't that bad. I did have it in total darkness for about 4 days, and I've been daily testing my nitrates and phosphates. My phosphates have been through the roof, so I've been making sure to get those down. But anyhow, like here's just an overall look. I don't even remember the names of all these corals. I can tell you most of them are from battle corals and worldwide corals. I got a few from unique corals, and then a few from my my local fish stores, as well as Aquatic Art in Denver, or I guess Highland Ranch technically. But anyhow, I'm super excited about the status of the tank and the route it's going. Let me just give you guys a quick shot of the sump. And this video is already going to be fairly lengthy, so I'll get you guys on your way. Alright, and here's a look at the sump. This is how it is on the daily basis. I haven't cleaned it in a few weeks. Still see it's the majority of the same equipment. I don't know if in the last update I let you guys know, but I took out my marine pure that I had in the sump, and it's actually in my quarantine system. And I added 4 of the Brightwell Aquatic Export BioBricks, just the general denitrifying ones, or to grow bacteria on. And I'm happy with those. I like the way they fill up the space, and they give me a lot more surface area, especially going with 4 of them. But like I said, all the equipment's the same. Still running the Zeovit. I'm happy with everything. Still running the Aquamedic doser. I will at some point upgrade that to the Apex dose. However, it's a lot of money and it's going to take time, so that's probably after the tank upgrade happens. The skimmer, the eShop's S200, is a very efficient skimmer. However, I did always complain about the collar being too tight, that you really couldn't get the cup off, and finally one day a couple months ago, taking the cup off, I got a big crack in the body there. It hasn't seemed to affect the performance of the skimmer, but that is something I will be considering replacing down the road, probably with a Nios model. I do have my Kessel, you can't really see it, my Kessel A80 I think it is, up behind the Zeovit, and that is because at some point, if I ever start fragging from this tank, I will just throw corals in there, so that way they're in the same water, at least till they heal, and they're in the same water that they've been in. But yeah, that's just a quick look at all the equipment in my sump. So that's going to wrap up the 1-year update on the 75-gallon reef, guys. Like I said, I'm very excited about how it's progressing. Even though it's had its challenges, it's nothing that you can't overcome. As with this hobby, it's always growing, ever evolving. Just make sure you always do your research, you plan ahead, and don't be surprised if a curveball is thrown your way. Just take that swing anyway. Anyhow, I'm going to try and do better getting you guys updates down the road. I've got new equipment now. I've got kind of a revived passion and excitement for this for the tank, as well as my work schedule's decreased a little bit, my workload. So anyhow, I hope you guys liked the video. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions, any feedback, go ahead, hit me a message down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Everyone have a good weekend, and thank you.